Hello everyone. I wanted to try something a little bit different with the patch notes video today, where we're going to be starting with the gameplay changes and then moving into the civilization specific changes first. And then we're going to use this tier list right here to kind of give a visual representation to see which civs are on the up and which civs are going to be really significantly negatively impacted by the changes that are coming in the next patch. And so I know the pros have kind of done a lot of longer deep dives into all the little different specific changes. This is ideally for more casual players, just kind of a very quick summary or overview. Ideally faster, I'll do my best to kind of cover the changes and also so you can see visually whether your civilization is on the up or if your least favorite civilization is potentially going down. So let's jump right into the changes here. I have it pulled up on this screen and away we'll go. So across all civilizations, these changes are coming in first. Village repair rate on siege engines has been reduced by 20%. This is going to be nice because you did get into some late game slogs where there was mangonels versus mangonels and you'd have all these villagers up there repairing any damage you managed to do to those siege engines. So I think this is a great nerf, especially for civilizations like China and Jushi, which were able to repair their nest of bees so significantly and so quickly up on those front lines. Stonewall Tower cost has decreased. Nobody even uses Stonewall Towers, but maybe they will now. So this is a kind of a complete unknown. Not sure which civilizations this is going to affect the most, but we shall wait and see. Springald, base damage against all other unit types has been reduced, but against infantry, melee infantry, it is increased. So civilizations that are spanning a lot of man-at-arms or melee infantry like Japan are really going to struggle potentially against a Springald mass. So that's a good thing to kind of note. Japan, maybe HRE or OOTD, really might struggle against this change. Professional scouts, cost has been increased. It's finally done. I'm so happy. Everybody's been waiting for this change. Pro Scouts has been nerfed fairly significantly. Big increase in the cost, which means it's going to take much longer to get up and online. Some civilizations that were able to kind of get that immediately upon entering feudal age will not be able to anymore. And then also the carrying speed has been reduced when you're carrying those deer. So other units are going to be able to catch up and do more damage much more effectively. It's also going to slow down the speed at which the deer is coming out of the TC. So this is a massive nerf, going to cause a lot of changes. Probably the biggest changes that are going to cause the largest number of shakeups for these civs. Town centers can see into Stealth Forest, cool, and Empire Wars, we don't care. So let's jump into Abbasid and then we can start to fill out this tier list. So the UI stuff is great. You kind of have a thing that now shows the Golden Age. I love that change. It was always so annoying to go down in there and have to click on the House of Wisdom, hover over the thing in order to see how far along you were in terms of the number of buildings towards the next Golden Age. Love that. They've got a trader to replace the trade. The trader has been replaced by the trade caravan, which is much faster than before, but it also collects less gold. So it kind of compensates for that, so it's going to be much speedier, much harder to kill because it's so fast, but at the same time it is giving you less gold. Not a ton of changes here, so let's jump back over to the tier list side of things. And I think Abbasid is going to potentially be a buffed civilization because of the fact that they didn't do Pro Scouts at all earlier, and so these trade changes aren't super impactful necessarily, but I do think that they are going to be stronger now that they have the ability to go 2, maybe 3 TC, and they're not going to get overwhelmed by that power spike of those kind of Pro Scout civilizations that could just kind of essentially just bowl through them at that point. I think they are getting a bit of a buff, which is nice. Back over to the patch notes here. Byzantine. Stonewall Tower mangonel emplacement has been reduced. Again, this is just the Stonewall Tower, not the actual towers themselves, so I don't know if that's really that impactful at all. Cistern has been changed, and this means that you can no longer immediately build a cistern when you spawn into the game because you do not have enough stone. As a result, it is really going to slow down the Byzantine early game. They're going to get stronger much quicker later on because the stone increase kind of stays the same without increasing over time. But what that means is that they're going to be weaker early, which means that civilizations that can kind of pounce on them could potentially do some damage. All of the different oil mercenaries from the trade posts has been reduced, kind of hoping to promote that playstyle a little bit more. And maybe it will, but it is really hard to get your hands on all of these units. If the trade post is not on your side or, even very close to you, it's really tough to kind of get this. If it is, then this is a buff, but this is very situational for sure. So if we go back to the tier list, I'm going to say Byzantines are actually nerfed pretty significantly. Not having that cistern in Dark Age and early Feudal Age, not being able to get immediately 2 cisterns upon entering the Feudal Age as well, is going to cause a little bit of problems for Byzantines early. So I think Byzantines has been very strong for a very long time. It's going to be interesting to see how early civilizations can potentially take advantage of this new weakness of this civ. Going over to China, it's all about the nest of bees that have been changed. Their health has been reduced, projectiles reduced, additional barrels technology also reduced. Sorry, increased in Imperial Age. My apologies there. But so they're going to be weaker in Castle, stronger in Imperial, which they needed because they were too strong in Castle and then too weak in Imperial. I think that's a good change. And then the Great Wall Gatehouse gets 2 nest of bees on top of it instead of the default. Should be around the same damage I've been hearing. So China is going to be interesting in this case. I really think that they've been using Pro Scouts really significantly. They probably still can because they get so much extra resources from those taxes early, from the ability to have the building supervised and dropping off more resources. So they probably can still do it. I will say, though, that I think that that's going to be a nerf to them. The fact that their nest of bees are going to be weaker in Castle Age and then also Pro Scouts is going to be used as much by them. I think they're kind of on the downward slope a little bit. Okay, back over to patches. Delhi, it's all about the fishing boats. They have reduced damage, but then they do additional damage versus ships, so they can defend themselves a bit more on the water. Delhi wasn't a big water civ in the first place, so it's not too interesting in terms of the changes here. But if we go back, I really think that this is a huge buff for Delhi with the Pro Scouts changes, because a lot of civilizations will not be going it. Delhi still gets it for free, which is huge. So I'm going to say that Delhi has actually been buffed in this case. It's not a huge, crazy amount. It might be, because they're still going to be able to do it, and they're going to have a huge economy rush later on. It could be a pretty significant buff. I'm going to put them in significant buffs for now, and we'll see how the other civilizations kind of match up to that going forward. Going over here, and we're going to talk about the HRE, because oh my goodness, they have a new unit in Imperial Age called the Black Rider, which is a mounted gunpowder unit doing high range damage. You train at the archery ranges, you can only have 5 per standing keep, but that becomes 8 per keep when you build the Elsbach Palace. So maybe there's now a potential argument for not going the Palace of Swabia, which before there kind of wasn't one. Also has the ability to move 10% faster and can fire while moving. They become mounted gunpowder Mangudai in the late game. Are you crazy, devs? There needs to be a new tier called Devs Are You Nuts? So that's insane. They can't fire directly behind them, so if they're fleeing, it doesn't do damage. But if they're doing drive-bys, they are mowing things down, which is crazy. They also now have the ability to create their monasteries as mini Aachen chapels. So then gathering resources around within that influence is going to be increased. So that's a crazy buff. They give Burgrave gives the infantry plus 50% increased charge damage. So now you have an even more intense burger rush potentially. The only nerf is that the Palace of Swabia has been changed from 20% discount. Why is it even discounted in the first place? Let's be real. And then to 10%. So it's a bit more expensive, but not by that much. Devoutness gather rate also kind of is lowered a little bit. A lot of people forget to even research this technology, but it is quite good. A little bit less so now. And then Elsbach Palace, the damage reduction has been reduced, so it's not as defensive of a landmark. And then, as I said, these Black Riders. So we're going over here, and this is an absolutely obvious, what is this? What are they thinking? HRE was strong before. Sure, they're not going to have Pro Scouts, but they can still create that farm transition under the Aachen Chapel and be getting so much food without the deer. So the fact that they now have the ability to potentially completely mow people down in Imperial Age, for team games, this is going to be potentially insane. A fast castle into fast Imperial, where then you have a bunch of castles popping up over the map to cover different things, and you have Black Riders flying across the map as mounted Mangudai mowing through the economy and trade of the enemy team. That's nuts, and I can't believe that this is going to be so significantly buffed. There needs to be a tier above over here, which is going to be, like, devs, what are you thinking? Because that's crazy. Going back over to the patch notes here, Japanese, just a couple bug fixes. And so in that case, Japanese is just, it's in a sad spot. I think Japanese is unfortunately kind of staying the same. They weren't really doing a ton of pro scouting in the first place. They were more fast castle oriented, getting those farms up around their landmark and around their town center. So that didn't change them too much. And then these were just bug fixes. So I think it's our first civilization that's staying the same. And unfortunately, I don't think Japan was particularly strong in either solos or teams at the moment. So unfortunately, they're not moving too far. Next up, we have the Mongols. So there's a bug where the Scouting Falcon could like block charge attacks, which has been fixed. And then also fixed improved elite army tactics. So going back over to the tier list here, again, I think Mongols are kind of staying the same. They weren't doing a lot of pro scouting either. They were occasionally, so they just won't do that. And then they're going to be focused more on that kind of trade, maybe 2TC again. So it's not a ton of big changes. Again, I think that they're staying the same, and unfortunately they were kind of on the weaker side, so not a big change there. Ottomans, stone wall towers are now correctly discounted. This is tiny because nobody was building these anyways, as I've discussed before. So again, I feel like Ottomans was also one of the civilizations not really going for that the pro scouts. So I think they're also kind of towards the bottom. Maybe the siege changes, maybe people are going to be more likely to kind of use those effectively, but I do think that they're kind of staying the same. And again, they're not a super strong civ, and I can't believe that we are buffing HRE so much, and these poor 3 civilizations are kind of staying the same when they maybe could have used a little bit of love. Next up, we have the Rus, and Rus is going to be completely changed at this point because they were doing pro scouts. They likely will still try to do that because getting those deer out of the TC just gives them so much bounty. But the bounty requirements has been increased, so that means you're going to have to get to more of that. And that also means that, the pro scouts is going to be so much slower. They're going to have to build units in feudal age. They may have to actually go out on the gold potentially if they're not getting those pro scouts in. And it's going to take them a while. It's going to be able to be denied more effectively. And I think this is a massive hit to the Rus, which were a very strong civilization and honestly deserved it. So I think that Rus is going as our very first significantly nerfed civilization. I think the pro scouts change is really, really going to hurt them. And this bounty change as well is going to definitely adjust how they're doing. We're going now to the variant civilization changes. Ayyubids, the same UI update as the Abbasid. Love that. Same trade update as the Abbasids. Love that as well. Master Smiths gets a military academy for free in addition to previous effects. That's interesting. Industry Wing could be potentially useful now. It's not one that people normally go, but getting additional construction speed could be something where you're kind of going for a quicker town center in the later ages. Could be a bit different thing. And then fixed an issue with the economic growth wing as well. And then fixed an issue there. And then it was another issue that was fixed. So Ayyubids also were not super into the pro scout meta. And so having some of these changes and buffs, I'm going to say it's technically a buff. I think that they're going a little bit higher. So we move over here and we put them into the buffs category. So similar with their brother, the Abbasid, they are going to become a little bit stronger, even just a little bit more flexible with some of these changes to the wings. Could make their gameplay a little bit more interesting than kind of just the traditional rushing castle into camel lancers you see in kind of the more 1v1 oriented. Kind of excited for those changes. I think it's going to make things a bit more interesting there. Going back over to the Order of the Dragon, only change for them is the Palace of Swabia discount has been reduced, similar to the HRE. So that means that Order of the Dragon is definitely getting a nerf because they really struggled for food early on. And now with Pro Scouts being nerfed, they are going to continue to struggle. And they also have the disadvantage of having much more expensive units, and you can't split those units in two. So if you're trying to scout from multiple different deer packs, you're really going to be running your units pretty thin on either of those sides, trying to protect those deer coming back to your town center. So I think that is a nerf for sure. I think OOTD is going to be kind of on the downward trend going into the next patch. We got to talk about Jushi's Legacy, one of the strongest civilizations more recently, and they have the additional barrels technology in Imperial Age now, like China does. So they're getting that additional barrel. And it's, again, just the nest of bees, the exact same things as China. I think that Jushi's Legacy is potentially going to be hit more by the Pro Scouts nerf because they were really, really relying on that to kind of get going. They might be into the significant nerf side of things because China was more flexible with what they were doing. Jushi's Legacy really was taking advantage of that huge influx early on to get them into that castle age, secure all the relics, get their pagodas up and running. And I think that the Pro Scouts nerf is going to slow them down pretty significantly. They'll still be able to get faster because of supervising the mill to get that technology in, but I do think that's a pretty massive nerf on that side. And that is all of the changes to the civilizations, but you will see there are several civilizations here that were not changed individually, and we'll be covering them now. So let's talk about French. French, I think, is going into the significant nerfs tier. I think Pro Scouts being increased in cost, they obviously get a discount on that, on their mill. I think it's just going to be slowing them down so significantly. They used to be able to have this amazing timing, getting so many deer under the TC, going up to Castle Age with their knights, getting the royal bloodlines in, and just being able to mow down the enemy, both in team games and in solos. But now that this has been nerfed, they're really going to struggle. They have a stable first so they can build scouts, which is good. It's going to take them longer to research the Pro Scouts, though. And then you have knights, which are countered by the spearmen that people are going to be building anyways to stop your scouts. So they're really going to have a hard time there, I think, as a result of this change. And if you recall, French was kind of really low tier before that pro scouts came in, and all of a sudden they were amazing in that one tournament that everybody was playing. But I think that now French is kind of definitely going to be seeing a significant drop off in terms of strength. Let's talk about Jeanne d'Arc. I think Jeanne d'Arc is in a very similar boat to French, but because Jeanne d'Arc has the hero, you kind of want to be fighting as Jeanne d'Arc. So you're still going to want to be fighting over these deer and having Jeanne d'Arc in the area for the experience of picking off those spears. You can also then discount the archery ranges and get some really cheap archers out quick to counter that. I think Jeanne d'Arc has the ability to still be hit significantly by this Pro Scouts nerf, but kind of take advantage of the fact that you're going to be then skirmishing more in feudal over these deer and potentially leveling up Jeanne d'Arc in that feudal age, which of course gives you the power spike to do a lot of nasty things before your opponent hits castle potentially. So I think, yeah, nerfs for that, but we shall see. And then we will talk about the English. I think the English are getting a bit of a buff. Similar to the Abbasid Ayyubid situation, they love to go 2TC, they love their early farms. And so when you're not competing against people who are getting such a huge influx of food from the deer gather rate, I think English is kind of on the up and up. There's been no changes, but as a result, I think English do get a bit of a boost, and we'll see a bit more play at the higher level, at the mid level, and a little bit more success in both of those ranges. That's my thoughts anyways. And then Malian. What are we going to do about Malian? I think that I'm going to put them in same for now. They were going pro scouts. They were very good at denying the enemy pro scouts. So maybe it's one of those things where they have been buffed a little bit. No, because they really loved pro scouts. They would get pro scouts. They would get a pretty decent mass in feudal while going cow boom behind that, and then kind of doing a big push in the early castle age where they suddenly had all this economy and could overwhelm. And so I think that they've been nerfed a little bit because they are not going to be going pro scouts unless they're going to be going and competing against an enemy who's doing so. They're going to be still relatively effective at doing that, but they're kind of back to being a little bit more of that kind of classic cow boom civ. You're going to be sitting back, doing your best to defend as you're booming up with the cows earlier on in the game, and then hoping for that kind of castle spike where you're able to throw out a bunch of sofa, a bunch of archers with poison arrow and or Musafati and run across the map and murder your opponent. So I think that is a bit of a nerf on the Malian side, and that's where I'm going to stay with that. And then, of course, all that's left is the two new civilizations, and they're staying the same because we have no idea what the heck they're doing yet. And that's where we're at with those two. That is it for kind of the power rankings for this patch. We're going to go through some of the other changes as well, but thank you so much for watching if you've gotten to this point in the middle of this video. If you enjoyed, a like and subscribe would really help the channel. I would super appreciate it. But now let's jump back into the patch notes and cover some of the other big changes because this is a huge patch and we're just going to run through things really quick. So we'll scroll back up to relatively close to the top. We don't need to get too close to the to talking about all the different civilizations. I've made a video. Everybody's made videos about all the different civs. The historical battle single player content coming with the DLC is looking very cool. We have a quick look here at the achievements that you're getting, or sorry, how to unlock the different coat of arms and stuff in this next event that they're running. And then we also have the kind of different rewards you can get for playing in the ranked season. Looking forward to it. I always find that the Conqueror symbols seem a little bit more lame than the team symbols. And maybe that's just because I'm sad because I've never been Conqueror in teams, and so I've never had a chance to get them. But just a bag of gold compared to a chest of gold, it makes sense because teams have more people, I suppose. Map pool rotation. Before we talk about the map pools, we need to scroll all the way down here to the new map feature, which is points of interest. This is the first time this is being introduced. And so we have a bunch of different things that are kind of unique things on the map that you can control or interact with that are going to give you bonuses if you're out on the map doing so. So Abandoned Outpost, if you control it, you gain line of sight for the player. The Lost Ronin, if you control this, then you can hire Ronin, which are like man-at-arms units for 100 gold each. That could be kind of a good like feudal strategy to kind of run into town center and cause some problems with those guys. Merchant Camp gives you a trickle of resources if you own this camp. Forgotten Ruin, you can take a villager, excavate it, and get passive stone. Enough stone potentially to get a TC, by the way, with one villager over the course of after 6 minutes, which is interesting. Could be a cool thing to do. And then a relic is unearthed, so you're potentially getting additional relics on the field on different maps, which is neat. And then the Wolf Den, it spawns wolves up to 5, and then you have to destroy it in order to gain 150 gold. It spawns additional wolves as it's kind of burning down, which is neat. It's kind of like a desperation move. So, and the effective maps of this are going to be Enlightened Horizon, where it has merchants, Land Mega Random, where there's going to be random ones all over the place. High View has outposts to give you line of sight through those stealth forests, which is really nice. And then Hedge Maze, which is a new map, and the Wolf Den is going to be spawning at the entrance of that. And so if we scroll all the way back up here to the maps, we're jumping around because it just makes sense to talk about that before we go down. You can see Carmel is a brand new map, and that's in the map pool. Enlightened Horizon, that's the one we just talked about, that's going to be having POI, also a brand new map. Relic River, I don't know if that one's new, it might be. High View also changed to have these kind of points of interest, and then Migration. So huge amount of kahunas from the developers to kind of throw maps into the ranked pool without having had a chance to test them. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it works out for them, because that's going to be very interesting to see. And then in the team map pool, we have Water Lanes, which is new, Volcanic Island, which we've seen, Wasteland, which is new, I think, Shadow Lake, which is new, and then also Enlightened Horizon. So lots of new maps to be playing with in the ranked season. It could be worthwhile to kind of jump into a custom game before you jump into your first ranked, just to kind of see how these maps work and kind of give yourself a bit of a bonus there. So we talked about the points of interest. Cool visual improvements. Crossbow and hand cannoneer kind of reloads have been improved in terms of their animations. Doesn't change anything gameplay-wise, but they're just improving things bits and pieces. Horseman attack animations are more aggressive, which is cool. Flags are rippling. It's kind of a neat thing, hopefully in the loading screens. And then these are the achievements that you get for mastering the different Knights Templar and the Houses of Lancaster. You can take a look at those at some point, maybe pause. We won't be going too deep into those. AI, a lot of these changes are now based on the Dominion victory condition, just to make the AI a bit smarter. So if you're playing against the AI playing Dominion, they will kind of make intelligent decisions now, which is nice. Also on naval maps, it seems. Caster mode, I'm excited for this because I'm obviously in caster mode all the time, creating video content for you. And so having the accurate count of army destroyed or our army value is huge, because you'd be playing or casting something against the Byzantines and look down and it wouldn't make any sense as to how strong these different armies were. And then the UI for each individual civilization, seeing the Ottoman vizier points is huge. Seeing the Rus bounty without having to click away is insane. Abbasid and Ayyubid Golden Ages being visible is so nice. Jeanne Dark experience, I finally don't have to click back and forth to see how close she is. And then also being able to see the Ayyubid House of Wisdom wings in progress. These are huge bugs that have been in the game for so long. The Japanese technologies you couldn't see when they were researching the different things of Wheelbarrow, but that's all been fixed, and I cannot wait to continue casting games in this mode. Really, really happy that those have been fixed. It's been a long time coming, but I'm quite pleased. This is huge. Update to ranked lobbies. So now, your opponent's rank will not be displayed. It will say unknown rank, and it will say ranked opponent. You can't click on their name. You can't see their profile. You don't know who you're playing. So this, for me, is a bit disappointing, because I really liked seeing their name, typing it up on AoE4 World, so I could get a sense of which civilization they were playing in 1v1s, because that way you can kind of maybe choose one, or if there's a matchup you want to practice, it would be more likely that they might choose the civilization they've been playing in the past matches. So won't be able to do that anymore, but I'm excited for this for teams, because it means that you no longer have those people at the top of the ladder who are like only conqueror because they've been waiting for lobbies that are against weaker players. And so they always dodge, and they will only play against players. Now they can't tell. So this is a huge, huge buff to the game itself, to the competitive integrity of the ladder. This is an absolutely massive and incredible change. I'm a big, big fan. Really, really like that. There's some map-specific changes. The tiny gold mines are kind of new. So they used to have 4,000 and 8,000 size golds. Now there's one that's only 1,600. That's going to be featured on a bunch of the new maps. Also, I'm sure really helpful for map creators who are creating kind of the new next thing. Sacred site generation is going to be more balanced between players on Atacama. Hillendale, we have the markets and the gold redistributed. And again, this is kind of just generally talking about the sacred sites being more closer to the middle as opposed to being in someone's base, which is great, because sometimes the sacred site victory condition was just not even possible, which is too bad. And then Danu River, I'm excited about this. That stone bridge at the bottom that connects into the kind of middle of the map, that's going to be a destructible wooden bridge. So potentially you can kind of cut off the enemy, or cut the enemy off from reaching you in that middle. There's a bunch of different kind of ideas you could use there. So again, Carmel is a new map with kind of these very, very scarce gold mines, a lot of small gold mines, only one big one right in the middle, I believe. And then Sunken Lands seems like there's a bunch of riches outside of kind of this sunken area where you get to come out. It'll be interesting to see how kind of like archers firing down into your town center area onto your villagers could potentially be very overpowered in this map. We talked about the points of interest, and I think that might be kind of everything for the patch notes. So let me know if you enjoyed this kind of format, doing the civilization stuff first and then covering some of the other changes. Really, really excited about the DLC, all the new stuff that's coming. The developers are absolutely killing it right now, I have to say. And I think the future is very, very bright for this game. So there will be tons more stuff coming your way from me in terms of daily Age of Empires 4 videos. So stay tuned. Can't wait for April 8th and the DLC launch. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've gotten this far. Would really appreciate that. Trying to grow the channel. And we will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.